The second act, French comedy drama, latest from director Quentin Dupleix, same guy that did the infamous film Rubber about a serial killer car tire. This stars Léa Seydoux, Vincent Lindon, Louis Garrel, and Raphael Quenard. It was filmed in secret, and it's a sort of a nested film, a multi-layered meta-narrative. And in order to explain what it's about, I have to kind of tell you mostly everything about the plot, but in this case, I don't think it matters that much anyway. So the first layer of the film is that a guy is going on a date with a girl. She thinks it's serious, so she brings her father to meet the guy. He thinks it's not serious and wants to get rid of her, so he brings his friend to pick her up instead. But then the characters start breaking the fourth wall, and it turns out that they're aware that they're actors making a movie about that upcoming date. They bicker and argue and have ego-fueled disagreements, and then it turns out that this is another layer, and that is also a film that they're making, one written and directed by AI. And that is the top layer of the film, so to speak, but of course, that itself is also still a film that we, the audience, are watching. So you could say there are four levels to all of this. Now, as to what it is about, I think it's trying to be a commentary on the nature of acting, on examining it on the one hand as a genuine craft and an art form, on the other hand by pointing out how self-serious and vain the actors can be. It is also, I think, poking fun at the idea of AI replacing creatives and how nonsense that would be. However, I don't think it's successful at exploring those topics, or rather, I think there are some interesting points being raised that are surrounded by a lot of what feels like self-indulgent bloat. It feels like a fun idea for a 10-minute short film extended into a tiring 80 minutes, which is still remarkably short, by the way, for a feature film, but because of how uneventful and over-talked it is, it still managed to feel boring. One point about the technical aspects, there's some very, very, very long tracking shots in this film. They're not very complicated. It's just two characters walking and the camera follows ahead of them. But I think one of those shots boasts about being the longest tracking shot ever recorded. And when the first conversation was taking place and the characters kept on walking and walking and the camera kept on moving and moving with them, I remember thinking to myself, wow, this is kind of interesting because I realized this is now an incredibly long, unbroken shot, and I'm wondering how they did it. Do they just have tracks for the camera card that are this long? But I'm a film buff, so it's sort of natural for me to always try to work out how a scene was staged and created. Whereas the general audiences, I think, wouldn't necessarily notice that, at least not to this extent, because the shot doesn't draw attention to itself. And then the movie ends with another fourth wall break of the camera showing us the actual tracks, which don't really have anything else to do with the film. They certainly don't have anything to do with the plot. And at that moment, I was like, well, now you've ruined it, haven't you? You broke the spell by letting me peek behind the curtain. This is no longer any fun. And I think that's a criticism that can be leveled at this movie as a whole. It tries too hard to be this meta narrative and forgets you need to do something interesting within it. It's so proud of the concept, it doesn't really pay attention to the execution. I'm sure it can be viewed much more favorably if you're an actor. Maybe then it becomes relatable. But for me, it felt like a potentially interesting idea stretched too far with too little idea of how to make it work.